Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer!
Silva! What a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it!
And here's Liverpool, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
Arsenal angst economy at all-time low as football club won't lose a game. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. That's right. The one thing that we have become so good at as Arsenal fans is angst, being angsty, being at each other's throat, yelling at each other, screaming about how terrible the team did. And we have a crisis in the angst economy because under Mikel Arteta, all we do is win football games. We win cup ties. We win league games. It is quite exhausting if you are looking to participate in the angst economy. But I assure you, friends, we will find a way to participate in just that very thing. So, a couple of notes. We have a new Patreon segment coming next week, a video scouting concept that we're going to do with Clive, where we're going to look at Awar and Party so that we can see what kind of players they are, analyze them, and discuss all the ways in which they would have helped us if we signed them, which clearly we are not doing because Arsenal. There's where your angst can go. Also, if you're watching us on Patreon right now, big wave for you. We are doing the video thing today, so you can watch our faces if you want to do that. I can't dissuade you strongly enough. And last but not least, let me just tell you what we're going to do today. Because the Carabao Cup game was not super interesting, but there are certain interesting things we think we can tease out of it. We're going to have a conversation today about 4 players in the context of how they performed in this game and maybe a little broader discussion of where they are at the club right now. And those 4 players are going to be Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Joe Willock, Reese Nelson, and Nicolas Pepe, who, again, I want to pronounce his name correctly, and I do get ridiculed for pronunciation, so I want to make sure I say it right. 72 million pound Pepe, I believe is how that's pronounced. Okay, I joke, but, well, let me do this. Tim's on Twitter, so hello, Tim.
Hello there.
Clive's on Twitter, Clive BFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
Hello, indeed. All right, so we get ridiculed, rightly so, for, hey, you don't have to bring up his fee all the time. You don't have to bring up what he costs. I want to read you a quote from Mikel Arteta on Pepe. I think he's come a long way. Quote, we know what the club paid for him when he joined, and that was obviously extra pressure. So if you want to register your complaints, log your complaints about bringing up Pepe's cost, log them with the coach, the manager, I should say now, because he brought them up, and we will joke more about that later. But let's get started. Clive, I want to start with Joe Willock, the one who maybe we have the fewest data points on. Maitland-Niles, maybe Reese Nelson could be put in that group. Pepe, certainly a little more data, but the Willock thing is interesting to me. I watched him really closely in this game. There was a move Saka made. He cuts inside. He puts the man on his big butt and gets in front of him and gets into the penalty box. Does such a great job, and he slides it across the corridor of uncertainty, and Nketiah just misses it. And at the far stick, the kid who just misses tapping it in is Joe Willock. Joe Willock in this game was making runs into the box that were so redolent of Aaron Ramsey. You just can't help but see sometimes the deepest man, sometimes the furthest ahead, making that aggressive run, finding spots in the box to arrive on the ends of things. But as I watch him, I say, he is the part of a midfielder that we don't have with any of our other midfielders, but the thing they have, passing and awareness of space when we're in possession and moving the ball quickly and being part of that metronomic part of possession, he doesn't have. So I'm curious, as you watched him in this game and you see the interesting runs he makes, how valuable is his aggressive final third running, and is it valuable enough to offset what I still view as his weakness, which is just clean, on-time, accurate passing of the football?
Yeah, I always say the same. When we analyze things, we always bring in our luggage into the room, right? So we bring in our analysis and we bring in things that we've seen historically, and they help form our base for our expectations for our analysis, right? So Aaron Ramsey is a good analogy and a good comparison. And Tim will know, because he's listened to me on podcasts for a while, I have not always been appreciative of Aaron Ramsey's
I too have done podcasts with you for a while, my friend. I just want to make sure that you're aware that I've been here the whole time.
I've been, there's, even before we met Elliot, we did, and I was quite consistent about times. My analysis with Aaron Ramsey, and primarily in a double pivot, actually. I always felt he was a third midfielder. I didn't want to change his game, but we need to change for him. Right? And rather than being number 10, I thought he was a number 8. They need to be able to break free. and not be the one to give a structure. And that was at a time when I felt the team needed structure. Right, then suddenly he was the same player, and we went to a back three with Xhaka in front of him. I started to appreciate him a bit more differently, because then I look at the team first and I see that Xhaka's got an armchair, 3 centre-backs behind him. In that era, in that Wenger era, the Chelsea 2017 Cup final, we know how the game went. And Ramsey could do exactly what he liked, and our structure and our ability to be broken on wasn't massively impacted. I was fine with him then. When I'm judging Joe Willock, I've got to be consistent and judge him the same way. So Joe Willock has never really been in the midfield too very often, right? So he's always been the third midfielder. Only that, isn't it? Got similar skill sets, Arise. And Ramsey wasn't always tidy on the ball. He used to be extremely risky, extremely untidy on the ball when he was younger, and extremely average at finishing. He smoothed some of this out as he got to 27, 28, 29, despite the big goals in cup finals, right? So Joe Willock, untidy on the ball, very untidy. Carries the ball probably better. He's better with the ball, better driver. Aaron Ramsey's better, more astute off the ball at the moment. And we say that because he scores more goals. So we then say, you're better off the ball because your movement leads to something. But I do think you can't not look at the two of them and compare them. They are similar. They want to do similar things. I think they both got skill in a different way. I think Ramsey's skill is how he receives it. He's got a smooth way of bringing the ball under his control and then moves it, then goes. I think Joe Willock's got a more of a skillful, almost winger way he receives the ball. Sometimes he chops it, he coifs it off the first touch, then he goes. It all looks a bit uncontrolled and gangly at the moment as he's 20 years of age. He's not setting his body yet. He's not there yet. And so people are not sure what he is. I do think they're very similar players, extremely similar. They see themselves as goal-scoring midfielders. The way they go about it is slightly different. The way they look is obviously slightly different. Their physical dynamics are slightly different. I think Ramsey was more metronomic. I think Joe's faster. I think Ramsey would win a marathon race where Joe would win a 100-meter race. You know what I mean? And so
Ramsey definitely has the engine. I mean, no one has an engine like Aaron Ramsey. Yeah.
And that was his thing. And that was I think, his weakness, because we gave him too much space to cover. And I think he ran himself to his thighs popped consistently. And then what people like me used to do, and I'll hold my hands up, when he came back from injury and had done 2 or 3 bad games, I'd be on him because we just expect him to come back. And then he'd do really, really well for 2 or 3 games. Then we lose him again. You see what I mean? And
he was a guy who'd play 5 mediocre games, but if he got 5 games in a row, the next 5 after that were sensational. He needed to get his running in. Yeah. Yeah,
and I need to learn about the player as well. Tim's been quite consistent in his love for him, but I always say, you know what? Let me have a little think about this a bit more deeply. And I looked at the rhythm of his game, look at his injury record. It's no surprise he played how he played, up and down. When he was hot, he was hot. So Joe Willock, to be defined, in summary, to be defined. I think he needs to start playing like an Aaron Ramsey more. Maybe if we get to a 3, great, but I don't think we will. I think, and we'll talk about this later on, we are heading towards a 4-2-3-1 team. Hey, let's see.
So, Tim, I mean, this is interesting because you can't look at any article written about Arsenal right now. You can't look at any Arsenal game right now and not recognize that creating more chances and getting more shots, I mean, that's the thing we have to unlock. And if we're going to play in the back 3, like, what was our best ever period in a back 3? It was when it was Xhaka and Ramsey, where Xhaka sat and Ramsey went. It's when we won the cup final against, I was going to say City and Chelsea, but now you have to say which one you're talking about, mate. But like, under Arsene Wenger, he kind of settled on that. It wasn't what he wanted to do probably, but it worked really well. Emery's only decent 1 month probably in charge came in that system. And I think, if we have a really good two-way possession-oriented, deep-lying possession-oriented midfielder, you do wonder just how far Willock can go just on the strength of his final third running and arriving in the box. I mean, that chance, the one I'm talking about where Saka slides it across and it misses being tapped in by Nketiah first and then Willock second. Ceballos isn't in that position. Xhaka certainly isn't in that position. Guendouzi wouldn't be in that position. El Neni wouldn't be in that position. I don't know any other player we have that has the instincts to be there. So how valuable is that running? And if you really can trust, whether it's a Ceballos or whether it's a Xhaka, to be the one who just sits more routinely. And I realize Arteta's build-up style in the back 3 is a little little different, and it really emphasizes structure, and I don't know how much Willock will thrive in that, but could he, if he really leaned into that, and if we really let Xhaka just sit, or whoever it is, could he be a possible answer to the lack of chance creation, the lack of goal scoring? I mean, how valuable is that running in terms of solving a potential problem we have?
I think in this system, not very. I don't think this current system encourages that at all. Because it's for the reasons Clive said, it's a midfield 2, not a midfield 3. You need that third player to be free. Doesn't really happen when you've got a midfield 2, and the ones wide of them are wing backs anyway. So they're not wingers, they're not midfielders, they're primarily defenders. So that leaves a lot of open space. So in this system, I don't think it is hugely it is hugely important, and I'm not sure we'll ever get there. I'm not sure that's what Arteta's really trying to do. We don't get a lot of daring passes from the middle of the pitch, and maybe that's by design. I think the other issue as well for Willock, again, as Clive said, Ramsey was actually quite good on the ball. His off-the-ball running was brilliant, but he could pass it as well. He could control it. He could beat players. He was an all-rounder. I don't think Willock is. The issues that Willock has got, I think, are twofold. First of all, I don't think it matters how often he's in the penalty area if no one's giving him the ball.
But if we're going to emphasize wide spaces, Tim, just to drill into that a little bit, we know we want to get wide. We want to do the overlaps. We want to be delivering the ball from wider spaces. So having another runner into the box. Now, Clive has pointed out we do crash the box. That's actually become what we do, and increasingly those midfielders are doing it as well. But given that we want to attack wide spaces and create chances from those angles, is that not wouldn't it come into play there a little bit?
Yeah, possibly. Because to finish the thought, the thing with Ramsey was that's fine that Ozil was there as well, so there was a ball there, whereas there isn't a ball at the moment. But I think the thing is for Willock as well, so there's a slight contradiction here. I think you need midfield. One of the reasons I liked Ramsey, and I was always comfortable with Ramsey, I think you need midfielders that break free from structure, or you need attackers that do that. You need to have players that do that, otherwise you become predictable. And what we've got at the moment, to be honest, I think under Arteta, is that we're a bit predictable in terms of our patterns of play, which is why we don't get many shots off. Maybe when we do, they're good quality shots because we're drilled into patterns of play, and when they come off brilliantly. But ultimately, teams know what we're going to do. And I think the issue is, the issue is that we don't really have a structure that encourages players to break free from structure. We've dropped Pepe for Willian. What does that tell you? That tells you that Arteta doesn't want the player that breaks free from structure. He wants the structure guy. He's already got one with Aubameyang, who still kind of does what he's told on the left. But the other thing is, when you break from the structure, that obviously gives you an issue. But so you have to back it up with the end product. So David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne at Liverpool, they are not stood in the centre circle. They are all over the place. De Bruyne's off on that right wing. Silva's off on the left, cutting in on his left foot and everything. They are not they do not sit in midfield, and they leave like Fernandinho or Rodri lots and lots of work to do. But they have the end product to back it up. And that's kind of the same for me with Ramsey. Ramsey had that end product to back it up. With Willock, it's not there yet. Whether it ever gets there, I'm not sure. I have my doubts. But essentially, I think he's a player that looks to break free from structure. That is not what we encourage. He wasn't initially going to be on the bench for the most recent Premier League game until there's an injury with Tierney. And we don't have that ball in there. I just personally, I don't see a place for him in this formation.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. Like I'm on record what I think about Willock as a player technically. I think he's well below the level right now. It doesn't mean he can't get there. I think he's well below the level. I think a midfielder who has the instincts to get in the box, and I think he has end product, Tim. I think he strikes the ball well. I think he can score goals. I think you got to do more than score goals. You got to create goals, and I don't know that his delivery of the ball to teammates is as good as his ability to arrive in the box and score himself. But having said all of that, I do take your point. Look, if structure is what you want, as soon as Jorginho arrives, I think we're going to be all set, because that's another player that's going to... I'm kidding. I do not want Jorginho. I want that rumor to die. Kill it with fire, please. But, Yeah, it remains to be seen with Joe Willock. I think that, again, it's so interesting to me that the best back three formation I've seen at Arsenal in the last few seasons, as a formation I don't particularly care for, was Ramsey running and Xhaka sitting. And if you think about when Ramsey was criticized the most, what was it people said? Oh, sure, he gets in the box and scores goals, and he does it because he's not defending, and that's why we leak so many goals at the back. I mean, there was always a little of that give and take in the way he was analyzed. I think Joe Willock's running is interesting, and I think in the right environment, the right team that's clicking maybe a little more or knows a little more what they want to do to score goals. I think in a midfield three, a runner who gets in the box, goes past the forwards, wants to be in that position, can cause havoc for defenders. And ironically, I think if Aubameyang was playing center forward, I think someone who runs deeper and pulls a defender off, I mean, we need more space for him to pop up, even if it's Lacazette, just not to be so bracketed. So I do think that can help. But again, I agree with you. I don't think at a technical level, he's good enough to be in the midfield. Like, Ramsey wasn't the best passer, but he was good. He was crisp. He was clean. He didn't turn the ball over a lot. I think Willock has a lot of
he became
work
good.
to do. I'm not saying he was good at this age, Clive. But
exactly.
But it's hard to say.
He's been criticized for flicks and tricks.
Yes, you're right. Just one thing though. What makes it hard to analyze Ramsey's technical level is he lost 2 years of his career at a young age as he was developing, and then kind of had to go back to square one for a little bit. You know what I mean? You remember the goal? Was it Manchester United? He scored a goal late in the season at home, and he had just a storming game, and he was young, and he was new in his career, and there was so much there. You know what I mean? And it just got put on hold. So with any luck, maybe Willock can have the same trajectory.
I think he could have been a way better player than he ended up being. I mean that.
And he was
way
pretty
better.
good.
Because before he broke his leg, he was just done. Dominate the very best teams. And I think he was stupid. So, yeah, I don't think we ever saw the player we should have seen. And I also feel we misused him on many occasions and overused him on many occasions. So
yeah. Fair enough. Well, we'll see with Joe Willock. I mean, I kind of would love to have him go out on loan because I think it's time to see what kind of player he is, and I don't know that he'll play enough, but with the Europa League coming back, who knows? So let's move on to another one, and Tim, I'll start with you this time so you're not always feeding off the scraps of Clive's brilliant analysis here. By the way, do you own the entire Adidas range, like every single thing they've made? Because you're wearing a different one every time. I've got Puma on, which I apologize in advance, and of course, Clive, being the baller that he is, has Hugo Boss on, for those of you not watching. But do you own the entire range, Tim?
I'm getting there. Yeah, I'm getting there. So keep subscribing on Patreon.
Yeah, because that's what you're basically becoming the kit man for Tim, which is super important. And if you keep doing that, maybe I can get my eyes done or something like that. I got too many bags under here from the babies. Anyway, moving on. Reese Nelson. We'll save Pepe for a little bit, so people have to listen beyond this point. But Reese Nelson is an interesting one because I feel that when he's played, he's been tidy and clean, and to sort of contrast him with Willock, very much in the system, very much doing what he was instructed, playing within himself, not flashing any of that quality that at one time had him being compared with Jadon Sancho, if you remember, like that. They were the parallels in Germany when they first got there. So this game, he was a little more individualistic. He was a little more flair-oriented. I think it's interesting seeing him play as an inverted winger because he clearly has something when he cuts in on his right that he doesn't have when he's playing on the right side, cutting in on his left or trying to go straight to the byline. So I think some people were frustrated with him in this game because they felt he could have set up his teammates better. For me, I thought it was encouraging to see him feeling himself a little more and trying to express some of that flair that if you're a forward at some point that has to come out of your game. How did you feel? Were you more frustrated by the way he didn't operate within the team framework or impressed by the way in which he tried to create his own opportunities?
No, I was impressed. I'm a sucker for a winger. I'm a sucker for players who perhaps don't entirely do what they're told and try and break free from that structure. I thought he looked much better. I thought because I'm not sure when he plays on the right. Yes, you're right. He does everything structurally right. He receives, he shovels inside. He doesn't turn the ball over. He runs his man, etc., etc. But what I liked about this game was I just think that opportunity to come inside meant he felt more connected to the team, and that kind of because I don't think he's a kind of a beater guy on the outside like Willian can do. Willian can, we haven't seen much of it yet, but he can beat that left back all day long and stand up across. I don't think that's who Nelson is. I think Nelson, he showed in his loan at Hoffenheim, he's got good penalty area instincts as well. On the back post in particular, he picked up a lot of goals in the Bundesliga. And I do, like, I've always kind of suspected that the left might be a better role for him, that he might be a bit more, almost more like a Gnabry type, really, kind of getting in on that right foot, getting in on that right foot. But I think you're right. I think that the kind of, I don't know if I want to say issue, but maybe the issue here is that kind of confidence, that assertiveness that we haven't really seen, and whether that's just his character. And we need to tease that out a bit more, or whether it's just because he was asked to do a more kind of conservative job, and he thought, okay, well, I've been asked to do a role, I'm going to do that, and I'm not going to rock the boat too much. But I remember he started away at Newcastle for the first game of last season, and actually he looked. I don't know if this is a credit to him or not. He actually looked really ideal for what Emery wanted to do, because Emery really wanted that box shape. He wanted his wide players to come in as number 10s, and he did that up at Newcastle, and he did that from the left, and he did it really, really well. And I think that's what he wants to do. I don't think he's a classic winger. I think he wants to come inside a little bit. So I see him much more inverted. But I love this performance from him against Leicester, because sometimes you can tell in the first couple of minutes what a player's thinking and how a player's feeling. And it was the first thing he did was he got the ball and he took a shot. And I thought that was great. It was a good shot as well. It was a sensible shot. It wasn't just a pot shot from anywhere. It was it nearly went in. And Arsenal don't take enough shots. There's not enough, for me, there's still not enough jeopardy in this team and in this attack that really makes defences think. And I thought he really added that. And then I just thought you saw him come inside, pop off 1-2s, and he looked much more involved. And he looked to me, like I said on the Patreon pod, he looked like, for me, he was trying to perhaps knows he's going to go out on loan. And he was thinking, all right, if I'm going to go out on loan, I want to go out on loan to a mid-table side and not a team fighting relegation, and that he was really looking to kind of make his mark.
I thought that the relationship he had with Saka, as contrasted with maybe the one that Pepe and Maitland-Niles had on the other side, looked good as well. That's not a Pepe dig as much as maybe it is a Maitland-Niles dig, which we'll come to. But I think there's another interesting point here, which is the Europa League has announced that they will have 5 subs this season. And I think that could lead to us maybe keeping someone that would have gone on loan. You might say, well, what does that really matter? I think if you only have 3 subs, you have to be careful about putting out a strong enough team that can win the game, because, maybe you get an injury, maybe you can't change it as much as you want. But with 5 subs, you can start a bunch of kids in the Europa League. And if it's not quite going for you, you can change it substantially enough to, probably claw it back. I mean, if you're playing Lokomotiv Plovdiv and they're down to 9 men and you need to bring on, some serious threat, you can, even if you've made a couple subs already. So that rule change might mean that you feel a little more comfortable starting a little younger, a little less experienced than you might have otherwise, that there's more minutes to go around. So maybe a performance like this and that rule change combined to change the trajectory. What I will say is there are certain players at certain points of their career that need to be playing regularly, improving, if not at the Arsenal level, certainly at some level, that they can impose themselves. I mean, you look at, a player like Tammy Abraham, who had whatever, he had something ridiculous. What do you have, 25 goals in the championship or something at 20 years old? Something. It was a lot. I think some people don't rate Tammy Abraham. I happen to, but whatever you think of him, the point is he went down a level and he dominated and he showed that he could come back up. And I think that does a lot for a player in terms of showing them they have it in them and showing the club that the player has it in him. And, I think it's time for Nelson to show that. And maybe it's not Arsenal. We'll see. Clive, let's quickly wrap up on Nelson. We'll shift to Maitland-Niles before saving Pepe for the end so people stick around. Do you share the same feeling with Tim that the inverted winger situation suited him well, and that it was an impressive performance with what he did individualistically? Or are you more inclined to look at the ways that maybe there were some opportunities in the team structure that he missed?
No, I thought he did okay. I think he gets a lot of praise, and I think that's part of the problem. I think I do feel Nelson is a classic kill it as a kid, transition to an adult player. I mean, he was the PL2 player of the season 1 year and was the best player in under 23s. Just fantastic. He went to Hoffenheim and I felt he got given a lot of praise. And I think his ability to absorb that praise and still stay hungry, I think he's really key. I see him as two positions for me, actually. I do think he's better off the left rather than high right. And I also see him play right wing back. And I thought he was excellent in a Victor Moses type way, where you have one wing on one side and a fullback the other side. And basically I felt that's a great role for him. Just very direct, punchy, up and down. He developed in defensively. I thought he could do something there in a particular system with a particular weight on that side. And he's happy on the extremities on the right-hand side with that defined role. But he's so close to Willian in style that Willian has sort of killed him a little bit. So when we talk about Willian and Pepe, they're different players, right? They're different players offer different things. So they can coexist in the same team, or they can rest one for the other and give us a different thing. But he's so similar to Willian. He wants to take up those positions. I'm not saying they're similar in stature, but they're similar in the way they move. And obviously Reese is a bit sharper now, given the fact he's younger. And so that's a problem. When you have him, Smith Rowe to come in. I mean, Joe's different to Reese, but he's really been hit by the arrival of Willian. And I think there's enough games to go around, but it's going to come in bunches. And if we get knocked out of the Carabao Cup, that takes a set of games away. Europa League games to come. I actually think they should all stay. I really think they should all stay. I think he's just going to have to wait his time. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. Enough games, but is it enough games for him at this age where I think he may need the boost of going on loan? So of all the players, he may be the one I would say would benefit from a loan more than any of the others.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, let's do this then. Let's do the blockbuster section now. We can say Maitland-Niles as the dessert at the end. Let's talk Pepe. I think it is difficult because Pepe has, for whatever reason, started to become that polarizing figure in the squad as Ozil fades out for one reason or another, and I am even hesitant to invoke the name. The Pepe debate has sort of started to take on some of that tone, and that I think it is possible to be critical of what we're getting from Pepe while also being clear, and I want to be clear. I believe in his phenomenal talent. I think in terms of his athleticism and his physical abilities, he is just behind Aubameyang as the best player at the club in terms of what he can do manipulating a football, beating a man off the dribble, the burst in the acceleration, the way he strikes a shot with the instep of his left foot, like the way he can curl it, free kicks. Like I don't know that anyone has the talent he has, but that is not all it takes. And for whatever reason, it's not happening right now. Let me read for you the Arteta quotes really quickly. I think he's come a long way. We know what the club paid for him when he joined, and that was obviously an extra pressure. So to be clear, we're not the only ones who bring that up. That is clearly a part of the analysis, even from the coach and the player. But he's a player who's had to adapt. It's a different style. He has a really good attitude. We can see development in phases of his game. He's very settled here. He's liked by the boys. He's really good character to have around, and I'm really positive that we're going to have him for many years and that he can perform at a really high level consistently. I think it's always nice for them to have some compatriots next to them talking about Pepe and Gabriel. It makes things a lot easier in the first few months when they cannot speak the language. I think both of them know each other, and they've spent some time together now. I think it's great to hear that, first of all, that he's liked, that he has the right attitude, because the one thing we know about Arteta is Arteta's not shy to say, when I see what I want in training, then he'll play. Or, he went after Ceballos, for example. He needs to work harder. He's not saying that about Pepe. He's saying that he likes what he sees, and it's just got to happen for him. That's encouraging. Clive, I have to admit, in this game, I kind of thought, I kind of wanted a little more from him. Just point blank, totally honest. I know he scores the own goal, and that Nketiah was furious about. Hilarious moment when that ball goes in and Nketiah throws his arms in disgust because he was right there to have it slipped in. I think delivering the ball on time, making the decisions in the moment. I remember with Theo, he used to say, Theo was the best player in the world at doing things that he didn't have to think about. When he had to think about it, didn't work out so great for him. There's a little of that in Pepe's game. How were you disappointed that he didn't do more to impose himself on this game? Where do you fall on what we're getting from Pepe right now, generally, and in this game specifically?
But yeah, we've done a bit on him recently, so I feel as though I'm going to repeat myself. So for some people, I apologise, but I don't think it's a talent issue. I think it's a mental issue. By that, I mean, that's a bit of a broad way to say mental. I think it's about how he applies himself and connects to a game of football. That's what it is. And how he is connected to a game of football and how he feels within the framework of a game of football. And so when we were about to sign him, I did a lot of, I know you guys don't like it, I did a lot of YouTubing on him, right? And a lot of reading on him.
Well, now it better be Y Scout. That's all I'm going to say, because we paid for it. You better use it.
Yeah, so, and a lot of reading, a lot of YouTubing, and I tried to connect the two together. And I often look at players in a psychological way because I always look at what they do, what they like to do, and what they're best at doing. Then how can you create something around them that allows them to do that more often? That's what a coach should do, right? Maximize someone's potential. When I saw the areas he picked up the ball, and I saw the areas where he's picking up the ball for Arsenal, which was basically in the West Stand. That's no good to anybody, right? It's very predictable because that's what you had one place to go, which was inside, right? You're on the extremities. And I said very, very early, I felt him and Ozil were duplicating each other. Then I looked at Ozil's young videos when he was at, I thought it Schalke or Werder Bremen, or maybe both.
Bremen, right?
I looked at him and I saw the similarities between the young Ozil and the young Pepe. I immediately said we need to move him inside. I said that straight away, move him inside. You have to get that player near the goal because he is a scorer, finisher, wide man. That's what he is. He's not a create. He can create, but he's more of a Salah than a Theo Walcott. You see what I mean? Theo Walcott, straight line run, down the sides. You want him there, stretching teams, hold your width, burn people on the outside or out to win run. Right? So off the ball killer. This guy can do off the ball. We can do on the ball. We had to maximise him, and I don't think we are. And because of that, you're absolutely right, Elliot. We're looking around because we do this. I don't like when we do this. We look for these people, and we look for them, and we look for these issues, and we create our own dramas. There is no drama here. All we have to do is decide how we need to use that whole right-hand side. Let's be honest. Because it's not working great. We've been talking about it for ages. And I just feel he will come to fruition when we decide he's important.
Can I make a point about the drama? So, Clive, the only reason I think we create this drama is, ironically, people think it's having a go at a player. You know what I think the irony is?
We're discussing.
Oh, of course. But what I mean is, like, I think the drama comes from the fact that, like, the players we are hard on are often, and this is what I think is misunderstood, we're hard on them, I don't think because we dislike them or think they're bad. I often think we're hard on them because we believe they're very good. And it's frustrating when the players you believe are very good don't deliver. Like, I'm not frustrated by Mohamed El Neni. I think Mohamed El Neni is a limited player. If he does okay, I'm happy because okay is his ceiling. When Pepe does okay, I'm frustrated. Not because of money. I'm frustrated because Pepe can be sensational. And, you know, to your point about him coming inside, Clive, the cup final run and the big games that he was good in down the stretch, he was much more central. He was cutting much further inside. He was getting much more support on the outside so that he could take up those spaces. And again, against Leicester, he was a little more chalk on the boots. He was wider a lot of the game, and I don't think he excels in that position. You know the offside goal he scored from the top of the box? Was it City or Chelsea, where he slammed it in cup final? Yeah, slams it into the corner from the top of the box, curls it like one touch, boom, explodes off his foot, and it's in the back of the net before you see it. There's not 10 players in the league that can do it. It is that, and I get it, he's offside, but if a player can do that, we have to get more at him. We have to get, that player needs to be unleashed. So I'll let you wrap up here, and Tim can have his say, but I'm hard on him because there's more to come from that guy.
Yeah, and I appreciate your view, and I think that's the way you should be, and it should be contextualized as such. But what I will say is, the last thing I said there, I think I just realized that I think it's important, is I think he needs to be made to be felt that he's important. He needs to get to the point where he's not just playing for Arsenal. He is one of the main men. And I think he needs to be told, you are one of the main men. Get out there and rip this lot to pieces. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he doesn't have
Rather than
Aubameyang's
putting-
swagger yet, does he? He's still feeling for that confidence. Yeah.
But he has got the most ability on the football, in the football club, apart from maybe the bloke that's on $350,000 a week, who's obviously very talented, right? I'm telling you, he is the talent. He is the technical talent.
Yeah, I agree.
He can do anything he likes. But I think it's all between the ears. He needs to be made to feel important. So Willian comes along, and what does that do? That says, maybe you're not as important as you think you are, mate. And now we need to pull him up. That's why I think with him, it's his ability to stay connected to the game, and it's our ability to connect him to the game and make him feel important. And once we do that, and we've seen it, then I think we'll be all good.
I do have to laugh. Had a bit of a go at Lacazette after the West Ham game. Was it West Ham where he scores the header? Yeah. Had a bit of a go, at Lacazette scoring a goal, having a bit of a go at Pepe, who, put the ball in, roughly speaking. It's who would want to analyze football? Tim, one of the things, though, that I think if we're going to point out Pepe's underwhelming performance in some capacity, I think the other thing we have to point out is if you wrote an autobiography about, well, you wouldn't write it, he would write it. If you wrote a biography of Pepe's time at Arsenal so far, it would be called "They Wouldn't Pass It to Me in Space," a Pepe story. Like, this guy, I mean, at the end of the West Ham game, he could have had a tap in. Oba didn't give it to him. He went for the shot from the top of the box. He had another moment where he was standing alone in the box, and I think it was who was playing on the left at that point at the end of the West Ham game? Was it Saka who was over there? Maybe didn't get it to him. In this game, he's leaning. He's showing where he's leaning. He's right on the shoulder of the last defender. He's in space. He threw his hands up so many times at Nketiah, who didn't give him the ball once, Willock, who didn't give him the ball once, Maitland-Niles didn't give him the ball once. So if we're going to have a bit of a go at him for being able to do more, is it me, Tim? Am I imagining it? Or is Pepe weirdly not being given the ball? And like, if we had a player who could play a through ball, would Pepe suddenly just explode? Because his running does seem intelligent. He seems to know when to go, but no one seems to be able to release it on time for him.
Yeah, I think that's part of the issue. I think I think it was really interesting in the quotes you read out that Arteta referenced Gabriel, who he played with at Lille. And because one of the things I think we know anecdotally is that Pepe he's an introvert. He's a very quiet guy. Perhaps hasn't made like loads of friends at Arsenal, which doesn't mean everyone hates him. It's just he kind of keeps himself to himself. He has like family and his entourage with him, and it kind of sounds like he goes to training, he trains, and he goes home kind of thing, and that he's not quite as in the group as players like Aubameyang and Lacazette, who kind of came here and were real kind of alpha males on the training ground. And you can see that a bit in the way Pepe plays. You can see it physically. Sometimes his feet are amazing, but sometimes he doesn't quite use his body quite as well to shield the ball. You can see that he doesn't really demand the ball sometimes, but I think we saw that in the cup final, for instance. You see that, and he was demanding the ball, and he was taking up positions that demand the ball. And I think I keep comparing him to all these players like Wiltord, not as a player, but as someone we signed for a lot of money who probably wasn't quite worth the money, but made big contributions, so we didn't really care about it anyway. And that's maybe the player Pepe could become. But I think the Ozil comparison, not just in terms of his style, but that kind of, slightly slopey body language that, they haven't given it, instead of that, you haven't given me the fucking ball. It's the, you haven't, and that's as an introvert myself, that is
it's worth paying the Patreon fee to see Tim physically imitating those players on the video right there, because it was something.
There's a bit of that going on, and I think there's also something, maybe I'm thinking about this too simplistically, that this boils down to. First of all, maybe Pepe is just not the player that we want him to be. Maybe he's got that. How many players have got that super talent but just don't apply it 100%? And maybe he'll only apply it 70, 80%. But I think the fundamental problem that Pepe has is that this team cannot. I think he kind of needs the team to be built around him. That is not going to happen while we've got Aubameyang. And the bigger problem for him is that Aubameyang is over on the other wing, and he's the one we want to come inside, and he's the one that we don't really want to be a winger. We want to be an inside forward, and he's the one who's running in the box, and like everything's around him, and that doesn't really suit. But it kind of reminds me of the Ozil Sanchez thing, where the actual two like Pepe and Aubameyang do combine really well. But I always felt there was this tension with Ozil Sanchez. It was like they both had these completely different personalities and set of abilities, which was great. But on the other hand, there was always this kind of, well, whose team is this? Is this Sanchez's team or is it Ozil's team? And it happened towards the end of Henry's time. It was like, is this Henry's team or is this Fabregas's team? And you get that tension sometimes. And I think the issue here is this is undeniably Aubameyang's team. And I'm not sure how Pepe fits into that, not least because of what I was saying earlier about Joe Willock, is that I think within Arteta's system, it's super structured. It's just like, no one break free from the structure. You've all got your space that you kind of, so having two wingers who ostensibly want to be able to go wherever they want, I just don't think that's going to happen in an Arteta attack, for better or worse. And I think
back to that importance thing again,
exactly, and that's both a tactical, that's both a tactical and a mental thing. There is a tactical point there, but there is also Aubameyang's the man here, and you've kind of got to fit in with that. And I'm not sure he's a fit in with that kind of player.
Yeah, Clive.
No, I agree. We've more or less attacked the same point from different angles, and we didn't go massive on assertiveness like I did on the Patreon pod the other day. But you have to meet him. He has to meet this halfway. He has to be more assertive. We have to make him feel more important, more confident. We have to allow him to be who he is, always in a structure that we are developing in a sense of identity with each other. And sometimes when you're developing a team and its identity, and what you want it to be, going forward, sometimes there are casualties. Sometimes people have to wait. I've got this little theory. Want to hear my latest theory?
I love theories. Is it about aliens or?
I've just concatenated all of my thoughts and taken some thoughts and thought, okay, I think I know what's happening here with Arteta, right? So he's obviously building from the back. And I know we're focused on when's he going to play three in midfield, when's he going to have this system that we think he had at City or rest of it. I don't think he's bothered. I think he's much more a zonal manager. I think he's much more about building hybrid players and switching systems within game and for specific opponents. And I don't think he is a 4-2-3 man or 4-3-3 man. I think he's a football man, right? So, and I think but I do think he wants to have a positional system that's control based. And what I think he's doing, this is my little thing. How do you get control? At the moment, we're quite a deep line team that plays through the phases. I think eventually he wants to move us forward. I mean the whole team from the back. So how do you do that? You add fast one-on-one defenders. You add a sweeper keeper. You know where I'm going with this? A sweeper keeper that basically plays high up and you move everything forward. And once you move anything forward, then you can add an OR because now you're playing in small spaces. You see what I mean? And once you move anything forward, where's Pepe going to be when receiving the ball? Much smaller spaces inside, much more in his skill set. So I think Arsenal are building a team for control. Build speed from the back, sweeper keeper, push everything 10, 15 yards forward, reduce the space. Then you have Man City. You see what I mean? Then you have covering, breakaway centre midfield that stops the counter-attack. You have counter-fouls. You're now replaying football in other people's half. We're not at the control phase yet. We're at the building the base phase yet. And I think Pepe's role is to come when he's going to be more of the player closer to the goal. Like he is when we see him, those sparks, they're similar sparks, aren't they? They're close to the goal sparks, central sparks. I think that's to come. So that's what I think the future of Arsenal is going to be in the next year or so. But Pepe might have to wait in the queue so he can be himself.
Can I add a bit of a stat to that? You were talking about control, Clive.
I do love a stat.
I read today that Arsenal's passing accuracy is 87 point something percent, second highest in the Premier League after Everton, actually. So I think that control point and how much of that possession is perhaps a bit sterile at the moment. But yeah, when you're talking about control, there is a clear uptick there in terms of keeping the ball and possessing the ball.
Well, and maybe it is working for that better chance, because the one thing I will say, we all know that Arsenal shoot less than we should. and near relegation form at times in terms of the shots we're taking. But interestingly, under Arteta, we had the highest XG per shot of any team in the league. In other words, we were working into the best scoring chances of any team in the league. And so that control and that patience, maybe there's a balance there. You have to create more chances, but you're creating great chances, and that's a start. Yeah.
But you understand what I mean by the control aspect, building from the back? So we're fans, right? We don't feel, we could lose this week, but we don't feel fearful. Well, I don't feel fearful about this game because I feel we are structurally consistent and there's a level of control about what we're doing. Now, imagine that's further up the pitch and we got better athletes that can cover big ground, etc. There's something happening here that's really significant, and we just have to allow it to develop. And not every player is going to be at their optimum while we do that.
And I'll say this, given that Liverpool do seem to be trialing a higher line this season, that seems to be Klopp's next thing because he's bored, Pepe better fucking play at Anfield, right? Because
that's brilliant, isn't it? Sorry, man. That's absolutely brilliant. I wish I'd have said that because that's what he did, didn't he? He brought Van Dijk in, got control, make sure we press people back and rip the ball off them. Now he's adding the possession piece. We've now got the ball.
Thiago. Mm-hmm.
Except we've got the ball now. We can't ask Jordan Henderson to drive this bus any longer. You know what I mean? We got to bring Thiago in, and we drop Fabinho back in the back line, for example. And now we've got the ball. Everyone's scared of us. Now I've got to adjust this team again, and that is great.
And I'll say, speaking of being scared, given that this is now a video format for me, and I can see you when you said, "Here's my little thing," I have to admit, heart fluttered a little bit. I'm glad that it was just a point about football. And the less said about that, the better. Let's wrap up real quick with Ainsley Maitland-Niles, though. And Tim, the thing with Ainsley Maitland-Niles that I am fully ready to concede is I think he is an elite defensive player at this point. And I think he solves a lot of problems for us across the back line, wherever we want to plug him in. I think he fits the structure. He knows the system. He goes where he's supposed to go. I think he's shown that he's intelligent off the ball. I think he's shown that he's dogged defensively. I love that about him. And the defense of him in the attack was, well, he's been playing mostly on the left and he's a right footer, and so his final ball delivery wasn't there, and fair enough. I do think that for Arsenal, again, with the shot shy issue that we've talked about and with the formation we're playing in, those widest players, which would be Saka in this game and it was Maitland-Niles in the other game, have a big responsibility. You saw Saka play almost like a forward in terms of what he was able to do and the danger he was able to create the last few games. I wanted to see Maitland-Niles show me that when he's on the right and when he's given that license, that attacking half side of the game is there maybe more than we thought. I don't think it did him any favors that as a contrast, he had pretty much a quiet game in that respect. Bellerin comes on, and about 2 minutes into being on the pitch, he dances past the entire defense, gets into the box, slides a perfect ball across. I mean, a little bit of luck, but it's a seeing eyeball right to the toe of Nketiah, and it's bundled in. So, is it fair to say, look at Aaron Wan-Bissaka at United. I don't think anybody would deny he is an elite defensive fullback. But he's not a great fit for them, in my view. I think he holds them back in attack, and I don't want an Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So if we're going to use initials, I want AMN to be more TAA than AWB, if you follow what I'm saying. So TBQHWY, right? To be quite honest with you. So, wow, that was close. So anyway, moral of the story is I don't have that written on my computer keyboard somewhere. So do you agree that we have maybe a little more of an AWB than a TAA? How do you feel about that in context of him getting to start on the right and give us a chance to see on his stronger side what he could do in attack and maybe not quite doing it?
Yeah. I think in this one game that's true, and obviously that's a small. Obviously he's played there quite a lot before, but that's a smallish sample size, and like you say, probably unflattering when Bellerin comes on and does that. But Bellerin's been doing that a lot lately. You know, remember that lovely through ball for Aubameyang at Fulham as well. And I think maybe this is confirmation bias thing, but I don't think it really told us anything we didn't already know, which is that if we wanted to go, it's great for Arsenal, I think, because we have horses for courses fullbacks. I still don't know where Cedric fits into that. To me, he is the odd one out here at the moment, not Maitland-Niles and Bellerin. To me, we've got Bellerin for, the vast majority of games, and then we've got Maitland-Niles, who can even play on the left as well. Almost like that kind of that Maitland-Niles Saka piece on the left. But for me, Maitland-Niles is the player you play for big games when you're playing on the counter. Like, I'd fully expect to see him start at Anfield on Monday, for example. Absolutely. Have him against Salah because he's an excellent stand-up defender and the rest of it. But if we were at home to Aston Villa, I'd have Saka or Bellerin, and that for me that's fine for Arsenal. Like I say, I don't really know where Cedric fits into that, and I don't know what Maitland-Niles himself thinks about that, because there seemed to be interest from Wolves. That's gone. They've bought a right back now, Semedo from Barcelona, so the Wolves thing has gone. Is anyone else going to show any interest in the next kind of couple of weeks of the window? Maybe, but are we going to get a lot of money, particularly now? One of the things that's really impacted the end of the window is the fact that there are going to be no fans. We know that for at least another 6 months. That really impacts the bottom line. That really impacts what a lot of teams can do.
Swiss Ramble did a great rundown, by the way. If you want the specifics, go to his timeline. He broke down exactly what it's going to cost each club and Arsenal specifically for that timeline.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just figured I would point people in that direction.
Yeah, no, but and there's not going to be a lot of buying going on. There might be some loans, there might be some swaps, not a lot of cash. Mm-hmm. So essentially, you could say we're stuck with three right backs, and again, it makes the Cedric signing even more confusing to me. But I think that's fine for us. It's just, what does Maitland-Niles think of that? Is Maitland-Niles at this stage of his career, is he happy, to just play those big games and perhaps not play in the other games? Personally, I still want to see him in midfield, which is not to say I don't want to see him at fullback. I still see him as an option for central midfield. I know he's got some flaws maybe, but he had some flaws maybe at fullback, and I think we got through those. So I'd really like to hear an explanation about why I guess consecutive managers just really haven't seen him as an option for that role, because I'm at least curious to see more of it. And I think the Carabao Cup and the Europa League would be a perfect opportunity to see it. I'd still like to see him, left wing back or defensive midfield, depending.
Yeah, Clive?
Yeah, I agree with the last point there, Tim, for sure. I don't get it myself, and let's have a look at it, right? That's all. Just because when he's done it before, he's done quite well, but it's been in average games. Let's see what he can do. He's got all the skill sets to do it. So again, I had a bit of a pop at you the other day, both of you, so I have to apologise for that when on my Maitland-Niles thing. And the reason why I did, I felt we were just judging people on crosses and last third for fullbacks, and I don't see the role that way. I see it as whatever is required on the day. One of my favourite ever fullbacks was Lauren. He wasn't Ashley Cole, but he was absolutely a killer defensively. His side, nobody went past. Right? So, and he underlapped, and he supported people, and no one could break on him. Fearsome. I just see Maitland-Niles as more Lauren than Ashley Cole, and Bellerin is more than Ashley Cole with his go forwards, front-footed style. Ashley Cole never stayed in his hole. He was gone. But he had Sol Campbell behind him, so Sol did two men's jobs, no problem. Right? So, and again in the week, we thought, okay, you're on your right foot. Let's see you compete with Bellerin. We walked in with our luggage. Yeah, we walked in with our luggage to say, let's see what you can do versus Bellerin. We do it. We all do it. It's natural. And he played a different game. Ask yourself why he played a different game. Well, Joe Willock was on his inside. Now, where was he standing in comparison to Ceballos or El Neni, who would give a structure? Joe Willock was playing one-on-one, and he was breaking. So for him to break, Ainsley had to be Carl Walker, inverted right back, to make sure no one could break on us. But every game has a design, right? And it's really important that we have a look at that and put our luggage to one side a little bit, our analysis luggage to one side, and our comparative data we have, and just say, what was happening in this game? What was the cause and effect? And that's how I saw it. By the way, I had the same disappointment on a couple of sloppy left-footed passes. I mean, really bad. It didn't cost us anything because they weren't that great and we were quite sharp on the recovery. So on a day where there's crowds in and it's a big game, we're after him for those passes, but it just didn't matter because we snuffed them out really quickly. But we all saw them, right? So, and that needs to come out of the game. I think some of that's concentration. We spoke about games with no crowds and how people get disconnected. I think he's definitely one of those. I think Pepe's another one. They need it hard. They need it tough. And Tim called it, you want him at Anfield, didn't you? You want him at Anfield because we talk about elite wide forwards. Elite. Mm-hmm. And he is the one player that can stay with them. Right? So we want him there. That tells you what he's really good at. And that tells you he's an elite, defensive, progressive footballer that can really shut people down. So he is what he is. He's different. He's Lauren to me. I love Lauren. He's one of my favourite Invincibles. For me, the greatest Arsenal right back ever. And that's how much I rated him. And he was a quiet killer. Not spectacular, just a quiet killer that never lost his power. So that'll do for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? I think we have a hard stop for Tim that we are on the doorstep of, and it very rarely works out this well that we've wrapped up the conversation as that happens. And rather than just jettisoning Tim while we blather on about a game that will be forgotten in history, let's leave it there. I think that was a good conversation about 4 players that we will be intently watching. We could have picked someone like Nketiah too, but I think we have a little more data point on him at this point. So, we know his role at the club, and this will continue to change and evolve as we go. But all in all, look, it's just a simple fact that when Arsenal has a football game on the calendar, we go, we show up, and we win that game. That's what we do. That's all we do. And I assume we will just comfortably and confidently do it again on Monday at Anfield, obviously. What else could happen? So, Tim's on Twitter at Roberto. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
Clive's on Twitter at ClivePFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Quick note before we get out of here. I want to thank everybody who has signed up for Patreon. It means the world to us, and we try to produce a lot of interesting and different and unique content there. We have an analytics pod with Scott. We have rewatches with Clive. We have instant reactions and pregame shows, and we have a scouting session coming up. We'll be back to In the Spotlight soon because we need to jinx a player. We also will always do these 2 free pods for everyone every week. That is a commitment. That is what we do, and we will always do it. So I hope everyone feels that if you don't want to sign up for Patreon, you get 2 great pods that you love every week. And if you do want to sign up for Patreon, that we take it seriously and we give you great content. So either way, I hope you're really satisfied by that. And if you're not, definitely get in touch at Pausing in my pants and complain. So we love you. Thank you so much for being here wherever here is. It really means the world to us. And we hope you have a great weekend. It won't be ruined by Arsenal. And Monday, big win coming up. So we love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10, Liverpool 0.